What's up, guys? Ted from Nerd Immersion here. We're back at GenCon 2018, and this time a little bit different than what you've seen so far. But before, I won't spoil any of this. So I'm here with David Reid, and we're going to talk a little bit about Cthulhu Chronicles. But first of all, tell me who you are, what you do for the company, and all that good stuff.
You got it, Ted. Well, I'm David Reid. I am the founder and CEO of MetaArcade. We're a small independent developer in the Seattle area, 6 people, and we're here at GenCon 2018 in the Chaosium booth with our great partners on Call of Cthulhu for Cthulhu Chronicles. We've been to GenCon 3 years in a row now. We're here celebrating the launch of our second product. Last year we launched our first one here, Tunnels and Trolls Adventures.
Okay. So Cthulhu Chronicles, here we've got the thing behind us here. You can see it's obviously available in the App Store. But before we dive into where it's available and all that, why don't we tell people what the game is?
Absolutely. So Cthulhu Chronicles is an interactive fiction horror thing. You know, basically, if people are familiar with Call of Cthulhu, the role-playing game, or if they're just familiar with Cthulhu in general, or even if they're just maybe Cthulhu curious, as we like to say, Cthulhu Chronicles is if you think about things like an old choose-your-own-adventure book, or some of the game books from Fighting Fantasy, or our first product, Tunnels and Trolls, with the solo adventures they made, with even Chaosium's own Alone Against the Flames, Dark, Wendigo, that sort of line, but done digitally. The idea that you can play these things on your phone or your tablet. You scroll through adventures, you have art for every frame, text, choices, audio in the background, and you go through these experiences of what you've seen in pen and paper adventures before, but now it's a solo adventure on the phone or tablet that you already own. The whole idea for this started with, at some level, my own kind of patient zero problem, right? I look at things like Drive-Through RPG and what they're doing with Dungeon Masters Guild, with D&D, with Storyteller's Vault, with White Wolf, with Miskatonic Repository, with Chaosium.
Yeah, of course.
And the idea that people are, excited about making their own things, doing an official product with a license, using art and logo and things like that. And then when they publish them out and it generates revenue, they get a slice of the revenue they've created, as does the licensor and the platform. MetaArcade is moving very much in that direction, inspired by that. I've been in video games for about 20 years, but I am not technical anymore. I've never even been a little bit artistic. And when I thought about what I could do to create something, I came back to narrative. I've been coming to Gen Con forever. I've been playing tabletop games, running campaigns, playing in campaigns. And here we are with tens of thousands of people, all of whom have probably written adventures for one game or another, all of whom have played with, maybe 5, 10, a dozen people around a table, but all that work has never been seen by anybody else unless they've come to Drive-Through or something like that. So the idea really was, how could a guy like me make something digital without being an engineer, without being an artist, without having all the money to build something like that, and conceived of this platform where I just bring my story, I track the branching narrative in a map view, I use art and audio in our archive, so I pick a picture, I pick a sound effect, I pick a music track, and anytime I want to have combat or a saving throw or a skill check, it's just a drag and drop menu, like, oh, it's combat with a Shoggoth, or with a flying polyp, as we're in the Cthulhu mythos here. And all of that stuff is handled under the hood. I don't have to be a game designer to adjudicate this. The platform does that for us. And so that's how we use that software to create all the content we have in Cthulhu Chronicles now, and have done that before in Tunnels and Trolls Adventures.
And I actually got a chance to play through 2. There's 9 adventures. Is that what they're called?
That is what we've got now, yeah. So the first campaign arc that we released is called Investigations in Lovecraft Country. People who are fans of Call of Cthulhu and Chaosium will recognize some of the adventures there, like Alone Against the Flames and Edge of Darkness, which you were able to complete on your first try, so obviously you're a fairly hardy adventurer, investigator maybe more correctly. But of those 9 adventures, Call of Cthulhu is a game that typically when you play around a table with your friends, there's not an expectation of a long-term campaign. We're all going to die or go insane by the end of the evening, and maybe if we're lucky, one of us gets out alive. So we tweaked this a little bit because, Cthulhu and what Chaosium has done, there's tremendous narrative and atmosphere and the investigation and the horror, and so we wanted to link these stories together in a campaign, and that's what we've done. So of the 9 adventures in Investigations in Lovecraft Country that are available today, 5, 6 of these have come from stuff that Chaosium has published before. A few of these are original works that we've used to kind of link the stories together, and rather than playing these things as one-offs, you go through in an escalating story with non-player characters and villains and monsters to, as you always do in this intellectual property, try and stop the bad guys from unleashing the horrors of the mythos against the world. that's what it is right now, and part of what we announced here at GenCon as well, in addition to concluding investigations in Lovecraft Country with Adventure Number 9, Blackwater Creek, we announced our second arc, which is called Mythos Across America. And think about this as sort of a Lovecraftian road trip with a little Hunter S. Thompson kind of vibe, going through 1920s, 1930s America and encountering horrible eldritch things in strange corners of the country.
All right, and has that launched now officially?
Not yet,
or
no.
it will
We just
be?
announced it, and it's in development, and it's coming soon.
Okay. And again, we said it's on Apple right now. There's been a handful of people that have come up and have been asking for Android, and I believe that's in development currently.
It absolutely is. I will tell you candidly, right? A team of 6 people. Android is working. We have it running. We just need to do a little more QA and make sure it works. Being a small studio, getting on iOS is actually fairly easy because there's only so many devices and only so many versions. You get to Android, and there are a lot of devices. And so making sure that stuff works and that when people do start playing it on Android, they're having a good experience. We learned that lesson when we launched our first game last year, Tunnels and Trolls Adventures. We were pretty good on iOS and stable, needed to do a little more work on Android. We didn't want to make that problem for our consumers again. We wanted the fans and the players to have a good experience on day one. So I assure everybody it's coming fast and soon. When we're saying soon, we're not talking like, oh, it's next year soon. No, it's really soon. This thing is working. We've just got a little more work to do to polish it up.
So Android users, hold out, and honestly, you'll be thankful in the long run that this work has been done. Believe me, you don't want a buggy game on a mobile platform. So I guess we should talk. Is it free? Is it pay? Any of that?
Absolutely. So the game is free.
Okay.
It is a game where basically you download the game for free, and we give you what we call free trials every day. A trial isn't like a slice of the content. It is, you get a full play of an adventure. Think of the trials as I like to call them quarters at the arcade. You put a quarter in the machine, and it doesn't matter how well you do or whatever, the quarter's gone, and even if you walk away and leave, that's what you've got. You get 3 free trials a day. They regenerate on a daily basis. So every day you get your 3 trials back. If, however, you want to play more than 3 times a day, not a problem. The adventures themselves are available for purchase at $2 a piece. And during GenCon, which ends soon, we have a sale running until tomorrow morning where the first 5 adventures are 50% off or just $1. And so, the whole idea on this is not you've played it. It's not a loot box mobile game.
No.
It's storytelling. It's narrative, right? And so our goal is to get the stories in the hands of as many people as possible, and once you've bought a story, you own it, and you can play it as much as you want with all the 6 pre-generated characters we've got in there, and learn the different sort of branches of narrative that each character has, pick up the clues, as I saw you earned a few clues as you went through the process. That's really the core of what this is, and letting ultimately people create their own stories, put them in there, and be part of that business as well.
So yeah, I played through 2 adventures. I played as 2. There's 6 pre-generated characters. The statistics for the characters very simple: health, sanity, and then intelligence. Basically your athletics, your knowledge, and your charisma, if you will. I'm paraphrasing. That's not the names in the game, but you get the point. And different characters have different abilities in different ranks, and that makes certain aspects different. And it's sort of just a random generated counter when you do a skill check.
Yeah.
If you're better at it, you'll have a better opportunity. If it's a harder skill, it's significantly harder to succeed. Now, one thing I didn't get to experience was combat. So can you tell me what combat would be like if I encountered that?
Absolutely. So, like you said, we've taken the core of the Call of Cthulhu rules and distilled it down. So, Call of Cthulhu, you have 10 attributes. We've boiled that down to 3. Like you say, your athleticism, which is pretty important in physical combat, your intelligence, which helps you decode things and figure things out, and your appearance, which is that combination of charisma, willpower, all those sorts of things that you use to influence people. When you go into combat or a skill check, rather than, in our first game for Tunnels and Trolls, we had dice rolling across the screen. That was right for that IP. But as we thought about Call of Cthulhu and expanding out to this audience of millions of Cthulhu curious, we felt like having dice rolling across the screen was not really the right mechanic, something that was a little more easy to understand and do, and that's where the Wheel of Cthulhu came in that you saw in the skill checks. So basically the math under the hood there is the same stuff. Call of Cthulhu is a percentile dice-based game, and so when you take your skill check or you're in combat, it's a percentile check that's being rolled under the hood while the spinner is going. So, like you say, there are some characters who are better at intelligence than in athletics, and you probably should take the intelligence path with those characters and things. But when you come into combat, basically what you'll see is it's you and the monster that you're fighting, or the villain, the enemy, what have you. You'll see that you have health meters there, which reflect what your health is and what your enemy's health is. And as in the round, as the Wheel of Cthulhu spins, somebody wins, somebody loses. The winner of the round does damage to the opponent. Health meters go down, and then whoever drives their enemy to health 0 first wins. But once again, as an adventure goes through, if your health or your sanity go to 0, and your sanity is a precious currency in this game, right?
Yeah.
Either of those go to 0, you find yourself going to the sanitarium to recover, and you have to try the adventure again.
Okay. So I know another piece that we talked about a little bit ahead of time is there's also for people who like this adventure but maybe want to branch out on their own, sort of like we talked about with DM's Guild and other drive-through RPG stuff. So there's a creator program, or how does that, tell people what it is and then how it works.
Absolutely. So, and this really is the soul of what MetaArcade is all about. I mean, we're here at GenCon, we're excited to be working with guys like Flying Buffalo and Chaosium, but like I said in the very beginning, I like to think of myself as patient zero here, a frustrated creator who didn't have the technical ability to make something like this, and instead, now we've built something where anybody can do this. The creator program is live. We announced at GenCon. It's been live for Tunnels and Trolls for a couple months now, and we've actually published 3 adventures from the community that are now live. And for what it's worth, Tunnels and Trolls is live on Google Play as well as the App Store, and there are 25 adventures there that take you through a campaign path, and you can play some of these adventures that have been created by outside community creators. We opened this up for Cthulhu Chronicles as well, and so anybody who has a Cthulhu adventure to tell can go to, the URL is at our site, metaarcade.com/creators.
Link will be in the description.
Yep, and that basically is a place where you can sign up. We'll ask you a couple questions about who you are and what you'd like to do and things like that, and then we'll give you access to download the creation software. It's a simple thing, it's free, it's available on Steam, only if we give it to you, right? You can't go search on Steam to find it, but once we give it to you, you get the creator. You go through that same process we do. You type in your narrative, you branch it, you can see things going, or here's the choices I put in here, here's what happens in a combat where you succeed or fail, or a skill check where you succeed or fail. Conclude your adventure, bring in the art and audio that we've got. All that is pretty easy to do once you've got the software in your hand. Send us that file, and assuming you didn't use a lot of hate speech and plagiarism and things like that, we'll publish it out to the fans. And then every time somebody plays your adventure and generates some revenue for it, you'll get a big slice of it in the same way that if you had written a PDF for DM's Guild or Storyteller's Vault. Exactly that idea.
And I think that that's awesome because, again, I too have very minor programming knowledge, but I write RPGs. I don't, not for publishing, but I write, I do it for all my own games. So this would be an awesome way to branch out into, one, the Cthulhu mythos for me and people who know what I do, but also to dabble a little bit in game creation and mobile game creation. I think this would be a really cool thing, and I mean, you guys can go do this. And send over your, go to the website, apply. Hopefully you get in. I assume you most likely will, but
we're pretty open, right? I mean, but that's the goal, is just to let everybody create this stuff.
And then, I could be doing a stream of playing your adventure. That's a thing that could happen. So that's awesome. Yeah.
Or a stream of you creating an adventure and getting input from your fans. Exactly the idea here. That is absolutely it.
So this is a lot of awesome stuff that's happening, and I just happened to find you guys, and we had this, and this is fantastic. Is there anything else you want people to know about Cthulhu Chronicles or MetaArcade before we wrap up this interview?
Well, absolutely. I mean, a couple things there, right? Like we say, this is something now available on the App Store with Cthulhu Chronicles, coming to Android soon. Tunnels and Trolls Adventures is available on the App Store and Google Play right now. But there's no reason why it can only be mobile, right? We already have this running on computers. We see a path to expanding to that. It's all just about this little team and its surface area, making more of those things happen. Similarly, I don't think we're done emulating game systems with partners here at GenCon and in other places. We're looking at things even like public domain IP. Why not Sherlock Holmes and Dracula and Robin Hood? We are having discussions with publishers of other things, right? There's no reason why something like this doesn't work for I don't know, I'm a big Netflix viewer, I know many people are, and Black Mirror Season 3 ended, and what am I supposed to do now? I have to wait for Black Mirror Season 4. These are the kinds of discussions we're trying to have with all sorts of people, and letting, number one, us work with people with the assets they already have, as we've done with Chaosium and their art and their story, and the same with Flying Buffalo, letting people make something authentic and putting it out there. I mean, we can do that for them. We can let fans do it, and it just generates so much excitement in the community. It gives everybody a chance to be creative, and hey, some people are gonna, make a little money on this as a side hustle, and maybe somebody will find this can be their job, where they write adventures across all this intellectual property. That's really the vision of what this is. In the same way that something like WordPress allows my mom to write a blog, or Twitch allows my brother to be a streamer even though they have no experience, we wanted to build something that could let anybody be an adventure creator and maybe make some money doing that.
Well, thank you so much for this interview. That was amazing. So again, guys, I'll see you at the next interview. Be on the lookout for more awesome stuff from MetaArcade in the future. Be sure to check all the links in the description to find everything we just talked about. So thank you again.
Thank you.